Sean is a neat freak. He never allowed me to eat in his car. But on our third anniversary, I saw my best friend sitting in his car eating cookies. Crumbs were all over the floor. When I confronted him, he just gave me a cold glance and said, "She has low blood sugar. It was an emergency. Don't make a fuss." Later, he blocked my wedding car, eyes red, begging me not to marry someone else. I rolled down the window and smiled lightly. "Could you move away from my wedding car? I'm a neat freak." Chapter 1. When I woke up, it was pouring outside. I ran a hand through my messy hair and checked my phone. The last message still sat there from last night. "I'm going to sleep now." Today was exhausting. From last night until noon today, Sean hadn't replied. Just as a wave of emotion rose in me, I forced it back down. Pretending nothing had happened, I sent him a new message. "I'm up. Want to have lunch together?" It took a long time before he finally replied. "Sure." Even through the screen, his indifference came through loud and clear. I could even picture his expressionless face as he typed those two letters. "Let's meet at the cafeteria entrance?" "Okay." A few minutes later, after that one word, he suddenly sent another message. "Bring 2 Band-Aids." I froze. My worry instantly outweighed any lingering sadness. I quickly pulled open a drawer and stuffed a few Band-Aids into my pocket. "Are you hurt?" But he didn't reply. Sean had always been like this, distant. I'd gotten used to it. Downstairs, I realized I'd forgotten my umbrella. It was just after the last morning class, and the dorm elevator was packed. There was no telling how long it'd take to go back, and I was worried about Sean's injury, so I bit the bullet and ran out into the rain, jacket over my head. Luckily, the rain wasn't too heavy. I jogged through puddles to the cafeteria and started looking for Sean. "Yvonne, over here." A familiar gentle voice reached my ears, muffled by the rain and surrounding chatter, but still recognizable. I turned toward it. And there was my best friend, Vivian. Standing right next to Sean. Maybe it was because of the crowded foot traffic, but he was practically pressed up against Vivian, one arm braced against the wall, holding her in a protective half-embrace. Just a few steps away, I stood there, stunned. The rain was still pelting down on my head, and my soaked hair clung to my cheeks, the sensation uncomfortably sticky. Puddles on the ground reflected just how utterly miserable I looked. Shifting my gaze slightly to the side, I finally noticed Vivian's canvas bag was slung over Sean's shoulder. But I remembered very clearly Sean used to hate Vivian. Chapter 2. This was the 6th year of my friendship with Vivian. And the 3rd year of my relationship with Sean. In fact, even before Sean and I got together, I already knew. He couldn't stand Vivian. After I first introduced them over a meal, Vivian had to leave early for her part-time job. Sean and I walked back to campus alone. As the night breeze swept by, he suddenly spoke. "Stay away from her." His voice was, as always, cold and indifferent. I was caught off guard and stepped forward, turning my head to look at him. "Why?" Sean didn't answer right away. He pressed his lips together and walked ahead a few steps in silence. I kept pressing him, not giving up, until I was practically leaning on him. He abruptly stepped back, frowning. "You got sauce on yourself during dinner." That's when I remembered, he had a serious cleanliness obsession. Even though I was his girlfriend. Without his permission, I wasn't allowed to have any physical contact with him. "Sorry, I forgot. But you still haven't told me why you want me to stay away from Vivian." "She's my best friend." Sean tilted his head slightly. Right at that moment, the streetlight nearby dimmed. In the murky glow, I couldn't make out his expression clearly. I only saw his Adam's apple bob as he spoke, his voice slightly hoarse. "She's poor and has no dignity. You're better off staying away from people like that." I didn't understand why he said that about Vivian. She had been my close friend since high school. Her parents divorced when she was very young. Her dad was a drunk and a gambler. Growing up in such a toxic environment, Vivian might have seemed delicate and soft on the outside, but she was fiercely proud and independent. She must have sensed Sean didn't like her. After that day, during the few occasions the three of us crossed paths, she never showed it on her face, but her tone toward him was far from friendly. Shauna, of course, never gave her a pleasant face either. Stuck between them, I constantly found myself caught in the middle, trying to ease things on both sides. But nothing ever improved. Yes, at the beginning, Sean and Vivian really couldn't stand each other. When did that start to change? I suddenly froze, my mind blank. It seemed like it started a year ago. Right after my 22nd birthday. Chapter 3. Yvonne, come in and get out of the rain. It's coming down hard. Vivian's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. The rain was getting heavier, and I was completely drenched. Just then, a harsh electric scooter horn blared behind me. Startled, I jogged forward a few steps, only for the wheels to kick up a spray of water, soaking the bottom of my skirt. I looked up in dismay, and locked eyes with Sean. He frowned slightly and asked, "Did you bring the band-aids?" I was reminded of how anxious and worried I'd been when I rushed downstairs. I quickly pulled my scattered thoughts back together and replied, "Yes." "Where are you hurt? If it's serious, you should really go to a hospital." Before I could finish, Vivian cut in. "It's not him, Yvonne. I'm the one who got hurt." Chapter 4. In that moment, it felt like something clutched my throat. I couldn't make a single sound. Vivian didn't seem to notice. She continued speaking in her usual soft voice. "The shoes you gave me last time didn't quite fit. I wore them today for a part-time shift, and they rubbed my heels raw. My ankle's bleeding a bit." Her voice was always gentle, her tone calm, but as those words left her mouth, I was hit with a wave of discomfort. And that discomfort peaked when Sean's gaze darkened slightly as he looked at me. Suddenly, a memory came flooding back. During the last physical fitness test, I had pushed too hard on the 800-meter run. I couldn't stop in time and fell hard on the track. Dust covered me from head to toe. My knee was scraped and bleeding. I hobbled over to Sean, hoping for some sympathy. The moment he saw me, he frowned and said, without thinking, "You're filthy." My eyes and chest stung with the memory. I clenched the hem of my skirt with my free hand and took a few deep breaths before I forced a smile. "So, how did you and Sean end up together?" Vivian replied. "I was limping on the road after leaving the lab. He happened to pass by, so we walked together." Sean then looked at me and added, expression unreadable, "The band-aids?" His tone had turned slightly cold. I reached into my pocket, pulled my hand out, only to realize the band-aids were completely soaked from the rain. They were unusable. "It's okay," I said. "They're ruined. Can't use them anymore." Vivian shook her head, all understanding and gentle. "It's just a small cut, really, don't worry. I'll head back to the dorm and rest for a bit." "Senior, could you hand me my bag?" Sean seemed to only just realize he was still holding her canvas bag. He slid it off his shoulder and handed it to her, but didn't let go right away. "Are you sure you don't want us to take you to the hospital?" he asked. Vivian shook her head again. "I'm not that fragile. It's not like I haven't been hurt before. Senior, you should go eat with Yvonne now." She gave us both a bright, cheerful smile, waved at us, then turned and ran off into the rain. Her slender figure wobbled slightly as she moved, quickly blurring in the curtain of rain, until she disappeared completely. Chapter 5. Now, only Sean and I were left standing there. I instinctively looked into his eyes, but just like always, they were like a frozen sheet of glass, impossible to read. He spoke in the same calm tone he always used. "You're soaked. Want to get food first, or go change?" "I want to go home." And by home, I didn't mean the dorm. Since sophomore year, Sean and I had rented an apartment near campus. I usually stayed there. Only when we had early morning classes would we crash at the dorm the night before. He didn't react much when I said that. He just nodded. Let's go. The car wasn't parked far away. We walked over in silence. Just as I reached the passenger door, Sean suddenly called out. You're filthy. Clean yourself up a bit before getting in. He pulled out a packet of tissues and handed it to me, then stepped aside like it was the most natural thing in the world. The tissue pack was a soft pink, not something he'd normally use. I pulled one out, bent over, and awkwardly wiped at the dirty splashes on my skirt and calves. When I looked up and saw how detached and unconcerned he looked, something inside me snapped. You're seriously just going to stand there and watch me clean myself? His expression didn't change. You know I'm a germaphobe. The sound of rain pounded in my ears, echoing with the image from earlier, him holding Vivian's bag, even though she was soaked too. You had no problem carrying her bag, even though she was wet, too. But when it's me, standing here like this, you can't lift a finger to help? My voice cracked with frustration. You told me you hated her. You didn't even want me to be friends with her, kept warning me to stay away. And now, all of a sudden, you're getting close to her. Why? She's your good friend. I changed my view of her, tried to get along. Shouldn't that make you happy? He looked at me, then suddenly let out a cold, mocking smile. Yvonne, you're such a hypocrite. Chapter 6. That single sentence, laced with pure sarcasm, exploded in my ears like thunder. My heart clenched so tightly it hurt. I opened my mouth, but all that came out was the sound of stifled sobs. I couldn't say a word. This was our 3rd year of dating. But I had known Sean for 13 years. We used to be neighbors when we were little. Then something happened to his family, and they moved away. For years, we lost contact. When we met again, we had both ended up at the same university. Sean had grown into a tall, striking young man, but his personality had become much colder than it was when we were kids. And yet, he was even more dazzling than before. The feelings I had buried for years came flooding back, and I began chasing after him relentlessly. Maybe it was the bond we shared from our childhood days, but even though he was distant with everyone else, Sean always spoke to me. That alone made me happy. It felt like proof that I was special to him. The day I confessed, I mustered up all my courage and handed him a letter. He took it but didn't even open it, just looked at me with a slightly darkened expression. Are you sure? Sure about what? About being with me. Of course. I answered without hesitation, a bit of annoyance in my tone. I wrote it all in the letter, you didn't even read it. He curved his lips in a faint smile, folded the letter in half, and slipped it into his pocket. All right then. Let's give it a try. From that day, we started dating. Not much changed between us, we were still the same, with me always chasing after Sean. It was only then I found out that shortly after his family moved, his father had passed away, and his mother wasn't in good health either. The whole household depended on Sean. So from freshman year, he began working on his own startup. I asked my family for resources several times, helped connect him with people for his studio. I watched him slowly make progress. Of course, I never told him I was behind it. Sean already had enough on his plate. I didn't want him to think everything he had was just because of me. After he secured payment for his first major order, he bought a car. With a car, everything's easier. I still remember him sitting inside it, leaning over and gazing right into my eyes. From now on, wherever you want to go, I'll drive us there. His eyes were just like when we were young, clear and pure like lake water. But behind that clarity, there was always a shadow that wouldn't quite go away. I ached for him. And that's why I was always so patient, so forgiving. He didn't like replying to my messages, fine. He had a thing about cleanliness and didn't like too much physical contact, also fine. With Sean, it didn't seem to take much for me to feel loved. But right now, all those bottled up emotions swelled inside me, building up until something inside me snapped. I suddenly gritted my teeth, yanked open the car door, climbed in, and looked straight at him, defiant. Chapter 7. He frowned deeply. After a moment, he opened the driver's side door and got in without saying a word. Whatever. His voice was ice cold. I'll get the car washed later. Sean's obsession with cleanliness could be extreme, almost unnerving. Take this car, for example. He never let me eat anything in it. If you want to eat, get out. Come back when you're done. I remember standing there with a tiny bag of bread in my hand, stubbornly trying to push back. But one look into his indifferent, unreadable eyes, and I gave in. What's your problem? I'm your girlfriend, can't you just give in to me for once? I put the bread away, biting back a lump of disappointment in my throat. Somehow, I managed not to cry. Our apartment wasn't far from campus, just a 10-minute drive. Sean pulled over at the curb and said flatly, "Get out." I stepped out, but when I turned around, I saw he was still sitting in the car. He started the engine again, and I froze. "You're not coming home?" He glanced at me through the half-open window, eyes full of undisguised annoyance and impatience. "I told you, I'm getting the car washed." Then the car pulled away, right in front of me. In the distance, thunder rumbled across the sky. Another heavy storm was coming. Chapter 8. Sean didn't come home that night. And my cold, which had never fully gone away, came back with a vengeance after getting caught in the rain. Late at night, I spiked a fever. Disoriented, I managed to stumble downstairs and took a cab to the hospital for N4. Lying in the bed, I texted Sean. "I'm sick." As usual, he didn't reply. Instead, it was Vivian who messaged me. "Yvonne, are you still awake?"
Yeah.
A second later, my phone rang. "I heard you argued with Sean," she said. I wanted to explain, what happened earlier wasn't what you think. Her voice was as gentle as ever, soft like a breeze. I just happened to run into him on my way back from a part-time job. He noticed my ankle was scraped up, so he walked with me for a bit. "You've liked him for so long, don't fight with him because of me, okay?" The cold virus made my head feel light and foggy. I vaguely sensed something off in her words, but I didn't have the strength to dig deeper. So I pushed through the dizziness and asked, "Why'd you suddenly decide to call me now? You didn't look so good earlier today." "I figured you might be sick, so I just wanted to check in, ah." Before she could finish, Vivian let out a low gasp, her voice trembling slightly at the end. "What's wrong?" I asked, but she didn't respond right away. For a few seconds, all I could hear was her shallow, hurried breathing on the other end. "Nothing." Vivian finally replied, her voice still a little shaky. "I'll hang up now. Get some rest, okay?" I murmured a response, but something came to mind. "If those shoes are too small, I'll get you a new pair this weekend." "No need." There was something odd in her tone now, something faintly sharp. "Don't you remember? I have a part-time job now. I can earn my own money. I'm not the broke girl who used to rely on your handouts anymore." Chapter 9. The call ended. I lay there on the hospital bed, my thoughts tangled like a ball of thread. I tried to sort them out, but then a sharp pain shot through the back of my hand. I looked down and realized the 4 bag was long empty, blood was backing up through the thin tube. Panicked, I pressed the call button. A nurse rushed in, removed the needle. My hand was already swollen and purple. I pressed down on the cotton ball to stop the bleeding, wincing, and tilted my head back slightly. The hospital's fluorescent lights blurred my vision. And in that moment, I suddenly recalled the old equipment room in our high school gym. That was where I first met Vivian. She'd been locked inside by a few delinquent boys, wearing a pair of worn-out, splitting sneakers. I helped her out, then asked my mom to talk to the school administration to have her transferred to my class. From then on, we walked home together every day. I practically covered all her living expenses throughout high school. That's how I gained my best friend in those years. And the friendship even continued into college. I let the timeline in my head stretch out, slow down, and drift further. I remembered last year on my birthday. Because Vivian and Sean didn't get along, I made separate plans with them. Lunch with Vivian. Before we parted, she handed me a gift box and hugged me. Go enjoy your date, Yvonne. Be happy today, it's your birthday. Dinner with Sean. I've never had much tolerance for alcohol. Just a little, and I was already tipsy. After the date, I walked home under the moonlight, tipsy and swaying. Sean walked beside me, neither fast nor slow, matching my pace with quiet patience. I looked at him and grinned a little foolishly. I actually wanted to have dinner with both of you, but Vivian said she had a part-time job at night and didn't want to intrude on our date, so I met her separately for lunch. She even gave me a present. I let out a soft sigh. You two are both really important to me. Why can't you just get along? Vivian's not like what you think she is. The moonlight was hazy, and so was my vision. So I didn't catch the expression on Sean's face in that moment. I only heard his voice, low and steady. But beneath his usual calm tone, there seemed to be something deeper, something I couldn't quite name. If that's really what you believe. Chapter 10. By the time I got home from the hospital, the sun was already up. The moment I opened the door, I froze. Sean was standing right there in the entryway, a key dangling from his fingers, eyes clouded with emotions that wouldn't go away. As soon as he saw me, he took a sudden step forward, trapping me between his arms and the wall. His face was pale and cold. Where did you go? The hospital. I blinked and answered instinctively. I wasn't fully recovered from my cold, then got caught in the rain yesterday. I messaged you from the hospital, didn't you see it? His eyes dropped to the back of my hand, to the swollen purple bruise from the fore. I couldn't quite describe the look on his face then, what complicated emotions were hidden in it. But after a brief, tense silence, he pulled me into his arms. Yesterday. That was my fault. He said quietly. Let's just end it there, okay? I had planned to ask him more, but the lingering cold and exhaustion from a sleepless night made me give up just as I opened my mouth. I closed my eyes and nodded silently in his embrace. Okay. Where did you go last night? Back to the dorm. Oh. I nestled against his chest, catching a whiff of something sweet and floral, familiar yet unfamiliar. Did you change your body wash? Ran out. I borrowed my roommate's. He paused for a moment, then lifted me up and carried me toward the bedroom. Get some sleep first. Chapter 11. I never brought up anything about Sean and Vivian again. By June, our entire year had gradually begun third-year internships. Sean also started preparing for his graduation thesis defense. After his graduation ceremony and the end of my final exams, it happened to be our third anniversary. Sean promised that we would celebrate it properly. On the day of the anniversary, I requested time off from work in advance, though I still had to head in briefly that morning to handle a few things. Sean drove me to the office, but just as I came downstairs holding a half-finished cup of coffee, he stopped me before I could get into the car. Finish it before getting in, or just throw it away. He said in a flat but firm tone. If you still want coffee, I'll order you one once we get to your company. I stared into his eyes, and after a few seconds, finally sighed. Forget it. I really didn't have the energy to get into another argument. I tossed the half cup into the trash and got into the car. The morning passed quickly, but Sean's stubborn refusal to make even the slightest exception for our anniversary left me unsettled for quite a while. Still, remembering we had a date in the afternoon, I forced myself to shake it off and cheer up. As soon as work ended, I dashed out of the office, excited. Sean's car was parked just down the street. I jogged over, pulled open the door with a smile ready on my lips, and froze in place. Sean wasn't alone in the car. Vivian was there, too. More importantly, she was eating cookies. The small bag in her hand wasn't really catching the crumbs, so bits of cookie were falling all over the passenger seat. And the whole time, Sean just sat next to her, hand resting on the steering wheel, watching her without a hint of emotion. I stood there dumbfounded until Vivian finished her cookies and looked up at me. Her expression was calm, and her smile gentle. "Yvonne, you're off work. Don't get the wrong idea. I just happened to be passing by. I won't interrupt your date, I'll get going." I ignored her and looked straight at Sean. "Aren't you going to explain?" "Explain what?" "This morning you made me throw away my coffee. You've never let me eat in your car. So why is it okay, for Vivian?" He gave me a cold glance. "She has low blood sugar. It was an emergency. Don't make a fuss over nothing." Everything I had been holding back came rushing out like a dam breaking. "What do you mean, making a fuss over nothing? She has low blood sugar, so she just has to eat cookies in your car? What about the time I had stomach pain and just wanted a piece of bread, what did you say then?" I remembered that morning, how I had curled up in the passenger seat, clutching my stomach, trying to open the bread wrapper. And how Sean had reached over and stopped me. He made me get out of the car to finish eating, and even said, "You said it was a matter of principle. If I compromise once, there'll be a second time, then a third. You have a cleanliness obsession and can't stand crumbs in the car. So what now? Why is it okay for Vivian to eat? She can scatter cookie crumbs all over the passenger seat." My voice cracked, rough with barely restrained tears, but before I could finish, a mocking laugh cut me off. It took me 2 seconds to realize that the sneer, so full of ridicule and contempt, had come from Vivian. She'd always acted soft and fragile in front of me, so I didn't even register it was her at first. I instinctively looked over, right into a pair of mocking, unfamiliar eyes. "Just a cookie and you can't handle it? Then what if I told you Sean and I slept together in that passenger seat?" The words hit like a thunderclap, splitting my ears. My fingertips trembled as I jerked my gaze toward Sean. Chapter 12. His face darkened in an instant. "What the hell are you talking about?" His voice was sharp and angry. But Vivian only smiled more sweetly. "If I were really lying, why are you so anxious? Or should I describe the brand of condoms you used to shut you up?" "Yvonne, I'm really sorry," she added breezily. "Looks like I tried your man before you even got the chance." "Not bad, honestly." Her tone was light, almost cheerful, yet underneath it ran a sharp edge. Nothing like the harmless softness she usually displayed. I slowly turned my head, staring at the completely unfamiliar expression in her eyes. And, bizarrely, I thought of the first time I met her. I'd pulled her out of the storage room and marched her straight to confront the guys who harassed her. She was clearly terrified, hiding behind me the whole time. After the guys finally apologized and I was about to leave, she tugged at the corner of my shirt. Her voice had trembled with tears. "They only apologized because they were forced to. Tomorrow they'll bully me even worse. Can you save me again?" I turned to look back. The blood-red sunset lit her face. A single teardrop hung from the corner of her eye, and her panicked, fragile expression looked as though she'd shatter like delicate glass. That was the moment when I'd instinctively felt the urge to protect her. Habits are terrifying things. In my mind, Vivian had always been soft yet resilient, a girl weighed down by her family background, someone who needed me to protect her. That notion had taken root the day I saved her, and had stayed with me ever since. But in this moment, in this instant, a rush of fragmented images flashed through my mind. Sean's strange tone when I got drunk on my birthday last year. The two of them standing close together outside the cafeteria. And that night, me lying on a hospital bed. Vivian's breathy, urgent voice coming through the phone. Me curled up wearily in Sean's arms, and the scent of a body wash I didn't recognize. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I doubled over, dry heaving uncontrollably. But amidst the pain, my mind had never been clearer. I forced myself to rewind, to dig out every single detail I'd brushed aside, every clue I'd refused to see. Then I remembered. The first time I introduced Sean to Vivian, they stood across from each other in the restaurant, silent for nearly a full minute. The awkward tension prompted me to jokingly break the ice. "What's with the staring? I almost thought you two had some kind of grudge." "How could that be?" Vivian had replied timidly, lowering her gaze. "We've never met before." Later, on the way home that night, Sean told me. "Poor and still arrogant. Best to stay far away from people like that." That wasn't something you could say with such certainty after meeting someone for the first time. I suddenly lifted my head and glared at Sean. "When did you two actually meet?" As soon as I spoke, I realized how hoarse and raw my voice sounded. My eyes staring at him felt like they were about to bleed. Sean's face gradually turned pale. He didn't say anything, just stood there in silence, looking at me. In the almost frozen air, Vivian leaned against the car door and stepped out, stopping right in front of me. "If we're being technical, we got together before you and I even met. So it's not really me stealing your man, it's just revisiting an old flame, briefly." She looked at me and smiled. "Don't look at me like that, Avon. It's getting late, I won't keep you from your date. Happy anniversary." Chapter 13. Anniversary. Those 3 words stabbed into my eardrums, and suddenly, tears spilled down my face. Sean also stepped out of the car. He walked up to me, opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. In the end, he reached out to grab my sleeve. I instantly stepped back, nearly screaming from the depths of my throat, my voice raw with hatred. "Don't touch me." His hand froze midair, and he looked at me with a helpless expression. I had never seen that look on Sean's face before. Between us, the one who had always tread carefully was me. The one who compromised, who made space, who swallowed grievances, it was always me. It was 1 p.m., the sun glaring down. In the light, his eyes were still bright, even slightly translucent under the harsh sunlight. Just like how I'd fallen for him again after we reunited. But in my heart, whether it was affection or years of obsession, every twisted, entangled emotion surged up like bubbles under the sea. Then vanished without a trace beneath the sunlight. "Sean." I raised my hand and wiped away the tears blurring my vision. But they kept pouring out. I didn't care. I just looked at him and said, "This is the 13th year we've known each other. And my whole life. I've only lived 22 years. You probably don't remember this, but I first met you when I was 9. Your family had just moved in. You were a year older than me, didn't like to smile, and didn't get along with the other kids in the neighborhood. I was the one who kept trying to play with you. I shared my favorite popsicle flavor with you, took you to feed the pigeons and watch the seagulls, and even got into fights with other kids who tried to steal your toys. 3 years ago, when we met again, I was the one who kept chasing after you. I was truly happy to see you again. I believed it was fate, that we were meant to meet. After we got together, I believed it even more. I really thought we'd stay this close for the next few decades. All of this is back when I confessed to you, I actually wrote it in that love letter. But I guess you never read it, so I'm telling you now." I looked into his dim, emotionless eyes, and said every word clearly. "These past 3 years of dating, I hardly ever argued with you. I rarely brought up the past because I always wanted to make you happy, to help you believe that the setbacks wouldn't ruin your life. I tolerated all your weird quirks. I was afraid of upsetting you, so even when I faced difficulties, I never told you, I just quietly dealt with them on my own. But in truth, you don't even have obsessive-compulsive disorder, do you? Those excuses were just ways to make things difficult for me. While I was racking my brain trying to make you happy, you were doing everything you could to make my love for you as painful as possible." "Sean, we're done." Sean, who had been silent the whole time, finally reacted. His lashes trembled, and he mumbled a few words. "Today is our 3-year anniversary. I guess once you've cried enough, the tears eventually stop." At that moment, I finally didn't cry anymore. I just looked at him with a tear-streaked face, a mess. I pulled at the corners of my mouth and said, Breakup anniversaries count too. And with that, I turned and walked away. I'd only taken a few steps when I suddenly stopped, turned back, and marched up to him. Then I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. That handsome face of his was jerked to the side. His pale skin quickly flushed red with a visible mark. "I've wanted to do that for a long time," I said. "Ever since this morning, when you made me throw away my coffee just so I could get in the car." Chapter 14. I went back, packed my things, and moved out of the apartment I'd rented, back to my school dorm. As for the company internship, the school's required hours were already completed. I'd only stayed on to wait for Sean. Now, there was no need to anymore. So early the next morning, I brought my internship report, got it stamped, and boarded a plane home. When I arrived, my mom was watering flowers in the yard at a slow, leisurely pace. She looked up and was shocked to see me. "Why are you back so suddenly? Weren't you coming next week?" I forced a smile and said. "The internship ended early, so I came back ahead of schedule." I didn't even need a mirror to know how stiff that smile on my face must have looked. Afraid she'd notice, I quickly changed the subject and acted playful. "What? You didn't want me to come home?" "Nonsense. If I'd known you were coming back today, I would have asked your dad to pick you up. Wasn't it tiring coming all the way by yourself?" She gave me a slight glare of reproach, set down the watering can, and came over to take my suitcase. "Lou's out grocery shopping. If you'd like anything, just message her and she'll pick it up for you." As she chattered, she walked into the house. I trailed a step behind her and quietly sniffled. "Okay. I still say that mandatory internship was unnecessary. Didn't I tell you to just come home and intern at the family company? You're going to take over eventually anyway." She was halfway through when she suddenly seemed to remember something. She stopped and turned to look at me. "By the way, you didn't bring Sean back with you this time?" I stood still and let out a long, deep breath. "We broke up." I didn't explain why, and my mom didn't ask further. But during dinner, my dad suddenly brought it up at the table. I was having tea the other day, and old Shu mentioned something. He said that Sean kid has a lot of ambition, just like his dad back in the day. I had been sipping soup, but now I paused with the spoon in hand and looked up. "Sorry, Dad." Old Shu was an old friend of my father's. The resources I secretly introduced to Sean's studio had been negotiated through his channels. "What are you apologizing for?" My dad looked at me and gave a gentle, approving smile. "On the contrary, you didn't even ask for help. You pulled it off on your own. Old Shu even praised you, said you were exceptional, and that he'd feel a lot more at ease with you taking over the family business someday. He even said he was originally thinking of introducing his son to you. But Sean beat him to it. Now that you've broken up, how about I set up a meeting between you two?" "No, Dad," I quickly shook my head. "I'm really not interested in that kind of thing right now." My dad probably mentioned it casually. Seeing my refusal, he turned the topic back to Sean. "Good riddance. That kid might end up being as unreliable as his father." I froze. A question I had long overlooked suddenly rose to the surface. Why did Sean's family move away back then? I steadied myself and asked my dad. I remember hearing it was because his family went bankrupt. But what was the actual reason behind it? At the mention of this, my dad's expression visibly turned serious. Back then, there was a foreign investment project being introduced. It was a huge deal. If it worked out, the returns would have been massive, enough to multiply our assets tenfold. I went with old Shu and Sean's dad to look at it several times, and on the surface, nothing seemed off. But something didn't feel right to me. After talking it over with them, I decided to play it safe. I pulled out all my funds. Old Shu pulled out most, left a small portion behind because he still wasn't fully convinced. Only Sean's dad. Here, my father sighed. I instinctively asked, "What about his dad?" He was convinced this project would be his big break. After we pulled out, seeing it might collapse, he actually went and borrowed money to buy up the shares we'd given up. At first, it looked like things were going smoothly. But once the money had gone in and couldn't be retrieved, the project leader vanished. Left behind a complete mess. All the money poured in, gone. It happened so suddenly. None of us could get in touch. Then we heard Sean's dad had borrowed heavily and, unable to repay it, ended up jumping from a building. After that, his mom took him and moved away. Chapter 15. I finally understood why, when I first told my parents I was with Sean. Their immediate reaction was opposition. You haven't seen him in so many years. You can't be sure he's still the same person he was as a child. If you insist on being with him, you might end up getting hurt. I wouldn't listen. Wouldn't believe it. I thought that since we had shared those childhood memories, I must be special to him. I thought I could move him with my patience and love. But in the end, I was just deluding myself. Even after we got together, Sean never once agreed to come home with me. I was so understanding, thinking maybe he just didn't want to relive the past, so I never pushed him. I even kept telling my parents that he treated me well. Really well. I told myself the lie so many times I nearly believed it. My parents eventually gave in too. Fine. As long as Sean treats you right, we won't say anything more. But he didn't. A lie is still a lie, no matter how many times you repeat it. I went back to my high school, got information from an old teacher about the school Vivian had transferred from, and went there myself to ask around. That's how I found out everything about her and Sean. 4 days after I got home, Sean called me. At first, I didn't recognize the number. I had blocked all of his contacts right after leaving school. He had changed to a new number. I was about to hang up when I heard his hoarse voice. Slapped me already, feel any better? Hang up. Don't. I can explain everything. Explain what? I said coldly. Explain how you knew all along those resources came from me pulling strings behind the scenes, but you never once mentioned it? Or how you and Vivian were secretly dating and got caught making out on the stairs? You're the dirtiest person in the world, Sean. What right do you have to claim you're a clean freak? He didn't speak. I could clearly hear his breathing through the phone. You found out. A moment later, Sean's slightly hoarse voice came through again, sounding all the clearer in the silence. Was it Vivian who told you? Yvonne, you can't believe everything she says. She's never had good intentions. You saved her, kept helping her, and she resented you for it. That's why she came after me, because she knew that was the best way to hurt you. Then why didn't you push her away? Chapter 16. He had no answer. Of course he didn't. Because you never wanted to push her away, Sean. You say she tried to hurt me, but you did too. No, you wanted me to hurt even more than she did, because that's how you made peace with your own resentment. I almost laughed. But as I laughed, tears spilled down. 13 years of knowing him. 3 years of being in love. And yet it felt like I was meeting this person on the phone for the first time. All this time, I had filled in the blanks with the image of the quiet, withdrawn boy from our childhood. I refused to see the brutal truth right in front of me. I imagined him as a proud and pure-hearted youth, someone who had fallen but was still trying to claw his way back up on his own. I felt sorry for him, so I gave him everything, my help, my patience, my love, hoping I could help him become better. But in reality? You and Vivian. You're both just rats in the gutter. I thought of what I'd learned from that school. They said Vivian and Sean had been running wild together, skipping class, dating in secret, getting into fights, turning the school into a chaotic mess. After being caught making out in the stairwell, Vivian had no choice but to transfer. You hated me from the very beginning. I took a deep breath, trying hard to steady my voice. To you, I was the one who came clinging to you. No matter what lies you told, I'd believe them without question and compromise for you. So even your so-called clean freak excuse, the one that made me skip meals with a stomachache, was just your way of making things difficult for me from the start. At the cafeteria, you crossed a line with Vivian right in front of me, then turned around and blamed me. That day, you left me alone in the neighborhood and went straight to find Vivian. That night, while I was in the hospital alone getting 4 fluids, you two were tangled up together in some humid, disgusting mess. Vivian even saw my messages and deliberately called me, letting me hear every filthy little sound. The best friend I thought I had for years, and the childhood sweetheart I thought I loved, nothing but a con. All lies. I didn't hate you, Yvonne. I loved you. Sean's voice was strained. I just couldn't accept it. Couldn't accept that we started off as equals, but somehow, you ended up happy and perfect while I fell into a pit. I sneered. So you wanted to drag me down there with you? That letter. I read it again just now. Do your words still count? After a pause, Sean suddenly asked. You said you'd always hold my hand and walk with me far into the future. You were the one who let go first. I cut him off, coldly. No, you never intended to hold my hand at all. When I loved you with all my heart. You were consumed with jealousy and trying to destroy me. Sean, someone like you will never have a future. Chapter 17. Sean didn't try to contact me again for a long time. Instead, it was Vivian who came to find me. She was furious, demanding to know why her internship company suddenly dropped her, and why none of her part-time jobs had reached out to her again. Was it you? She snapped. You couldn't keep your man, so now you're using your family to play dirty? That face, once so pitiful and fragile in front of me, was now twisted and full of malice, completely unrecognizable. Staying at home all day only made it harder for me to stop thinking about Sean. So, after discussing it with my dad, I started an internship at my family's company. It was purely by chance that I met Mr. Shu's son, Ted. Vivian came looking for me while Ted was standing right beside me. He raised an eyebrow at what she said but didn't say a word. I stood 2 steps above her on the staircase, looking down from a height. You two really are a perfect match. Sean knew perfectly well that the studio's resources came through my introduction, and he still dared to try and swallow up my dad's shares. If I hadn't helped you, you wouldn't have even been able to pay your tuition. And now you show up to question me about this? I never deliberately made things difficult for you, even after I found out you two were sneaking around behind my back. All I did was tell them to revoke the special treatment you used to enjoy. Vivian glared at me. What's that supposed to mean? Before I could respond, Ted, who had been standing beside me, chuckled. Can't even understand that? How did you manage to get into college with that IQ? Vivian's gaze finally landed on him. Who are you? It means no one ever made things hard for you on purpose. You were never qualified to begin with. Everything you had before was just preferential treatment with lowered standards. Ted completely ignored her question and flung out a sharper jab of sarcasm. Vivian's face turned ghostly pale. You're talking nonsense. You know perfectly well whether it's nonsense or not. I looked her straight in the eye. From the beginning of our friendship, you were always taking from me. I didn't say anything before because I wanted to preserve a little dignity for you. Turns out, that was my mistake. Someone as shameless as you doesn't have any dignity to preserve. Vivian's expression darkened to the extreme, yet she couldn't form a single word in response. I stepped past her and walked down the stairs, side by side with Ted. Chapter 18. We had only taken a few steps when he suddenly spoke. She looked like she really hated you. I acknowledged softly. And now I really dislike her too. She used to be a close friend? I had poor judgment back then. That was the end of the conversation. Ted and I weren't exactly close, and he was tactful enough not to press further. He simply opened the car door. I'll drive you home. I got into the passenger seat and noticed a bottle of sweet milk on the console. I turned to look at him. Ted fastened his seatbelt, saw my gaze, and explained. Saw it while passing a supermarket, just grabbed it on a whim. Too bad I don't like milk. but I remembered you did. If not, you can have it. Oh. I stuck the straw into it and asked casually. You're not a germaphobe, are you? I am, he said, emphasizing the words. I take good care of myself. The car drove smoothly toward my house. I sipped at the straw, letting my thoughts drift. Until suddenly, the car came to a sharp stop. My body jerked forward, and the milk spilled all over the floor. Instinctively, I looked over at Ted, but he calmly handed me a few tissues and then got out of the car. What the hell is wrong with you? Randomly stopping a car, trying to scam someone? I followed his gaze. And saw a familiar face. Sean. I froze for a moment before snapping back to my senses. I pushed the car door open and stepped out, walking over to stand right in front of him. The sunlight was bright, casting its glow into his eyes. Those eyes were as clear as ever, and when I looked into them, I could see my own reflection. But it no longer meant anything. Why are you here again? I asked him flatly, without emotion. Was what I said the other day still not clear enough? I just think. Things shouldn't have ended like this between us. His gaze swept past Ted standing beside me, then returned to me, and his eyes turned red. Yvonne, don't do this to me. You can't treat me this way. Stop saying meaningless things. My expression was calm, and so was my tone. You know very well, I'm a stubborn person. Once I've made up my mind, I don't go back on it. Just like when we first got together, everyone said I shouldn't be with you, but I still liked you. I was willing to make compromises, to tolerate and accommodate you unconditionally, even sacrificing my own precious feelings just to hold this relationship together. But now, I've made up my mind to leave you. And you should understand, our breakup isn't just because of Vivian. I loved you once. That's why I gave you everything I could. But now that we've come to the end of the road, I'm taking everything back. From here on, I wish you the best. Chapter 19. After that day, I never saw Sean again. He had already graduated, and I was in my senior year. There weren't many classes left, so I stayed on at my dad's company to continue working on the project. With us now in completely different places, running into each other again was nearly impossible. Since the project was in collaboration with Mr. Shu, naturally, I had to keep interacting with Ted. He was a perceptive man. After Sean stopped our car that day and then walked away, I remained where I was and politely thanked Ted for the ride. I should head home now. I'll take you all the way to your door. That's not necessary. He didn't insist. Instead, he simply reached into his coat pocket and pulled out another bottle of sweet milk, handing it to me. Then just let me know once you're home safe. I sniffled and took it. Another random grab? Buy one, get one free. He waved at me. See you tomorrow. He was 3 years older than me, with a maturity that came from navigating the adult world. That year, during the New Year holiday, he confessed his feelings to me. I suppose you already know everything about me and my ex-boyfriend. I told him earnestly. Which is why I can't give love the way I used to anymore. That wouldn't be fair to you. That kind of all-consuming love. It's like a once-in-a-lifetime fuel. Once it's burned through, it's gone. I see. He spoke calmly. Is it because constantly chasing after someone feels exhausting? You could say that. Then how about trying what it feels like to be the one being pursued? I froze for a second, staring at him. Those were eyes completely different from Sean's. His were sharp, the outer corners slightly lifted, eyebrows drawn down in a way that gave him an edge, like a blade just unsheathed. But at that moment, as he looked at me, they were filled with sincerity. Because you and he are completely different people, you wouldn't treat me the way he did. Let me be the one chasing you, Yvonne. Throughout my senior year, aside from the 2 months before our final defense, I never returned to campus. I only heard scattered news about Sean and Vivian through classmates. Word was, Vivian hit wall after wall. She couldn't find a suitable part-time job, and even her grades took a nosedive. Eventually, backed into a corner, she sold the collaboration proposal and pricing plans from Sean's studio to a competitor. Because of that betrayal, Sean lost a major project and the studio suffered a heavy blow. Trying desperately to recover, he made a reckless gamble and ended up in massive debt. As for Vivian, she was arrested for leaking confidential business information and was taken to the station. I casually brought it up to Ted over dinner one evening. He dropped a piece of perfectly picked crab meat into my bowl and said, "Dog eat dog. Serves them right. They're just two lunatics, jealous of you but unable to let you go. Don't bother thinking about them." I nodded and finished everything in my bowl. Then, as I looked up, a sparkling diamond ring was suddenly held out to me. The eyes in front of me shone even brighter than the gem. Chapter 20. The last time I saw Sean was on my wedding day. Our wedding car had just pulled out of the courtyard when a familiar black Mercedes suddenly blocked the road. Sean got out, his eyes red, and staggered over to knock on my car window. "Yvonne, please. Don't marry someone else." I lowered the window. A breeze blew in, carrying with it the strong stench of alcohol from him. I smiled at once. "Sorry, but could you step away from my wedding car? I have a thing about cleanliness." Guests arriving for the wedding had already gotten out of their cars, and a few of them stepped in, dragging Sean aside to clear the way for us. He didn't resist. He just stood there in a daze, staring at me until the window rolled back up and the car started moving again. Sitting inside, I calmly called Ted. "Ran into Sean on the way here." His voice suddenly tensed up. "Don't tell me you're getting cold feet and planning to run off. I just wanted to let you know. If you have time, call the police, he's driving drunk." After hanging up, I remained seated in the car, surprised by how calm I felt. Once I stopped imagining myself as someone's salvation, I never felt so anxious or uncertain again. Those days I once shared with Sean gradually faded into a distant dream. The wedding proceeded smoothly and ended perfectly. That evening, Ted and I received a call from the police station. They said Sean had been driving under the influence, crashed through a guardrail, and plunged into the river. By the time he was pulled from the water and taken to the hospital, he was already gone. "Since you're the one who reported it, we're notifying you. What was your relationship to the deceased?" I closed my eyes. Countless memories flashed through my mind like shadows skimming across water, stopping at that final look he gave me today. But I no longer had the energy or interest to decipher what emotion might have been in it. "Just an irrelevant stranger," I replied.